Amazing time travel with a strange man lying next to you. The Yu Dynasty, the capital, the palace of the Nine Princes. Colored lanterns are hum high, red silk is flying, gongs and drums are noisy, laughter is noisy, and red happy words are plastered everywhere. There is a festive atmosphere everywhere. In the splendid and magnificent hall of the Nine Princes Mansion, people were drinking, laughing, and people were coming and going, making it a joyful and lively scene. It can be seen that there is a happy event happening in the house. New house. Qing Luo woke up with a splitting headache and found himself lying on a ridiculously large red carved bed with four pillars. There are bright red wedding flowers on the roof, and the body is covered with a silk quilt embroidered with mandarin ducks playing in the water. But my mind went blank, and I was wearing the kind of white underwear that I only saw in TV dramas. I was stunned for a moment, and I felt like I didn't know what day it was. She sat up, patted her painful head, and sighed blankly. This room looks antique, and every furnishing is so luxurious and gorgeous, giving off a luxurious and unfamiliar feeling. This is not her room at all. Where is this, and why is she lying here again? She moved and wanted to get out of bed, but suddenly she felt something was wrong around her. She subconsciously turned her head and looked. When she found a complete stranger lying next to her, she was so frightened that she almost screamed. Taking a closer look, there was a trace of black blood flowing out of the corner of this man's lips. Looking at his complexion, it was black and purple, and his heart had long since stopped beating. Under De Hong's wedding quilt, he and she were both wearing ancient white obscene clothes. It was obvious at a glance that the two of them had a close relationship. What the hell is this situation? Qing Luo couldn't bear it anymore and finally screamed, "Ah! Someone is coming quickly. Is there anyone?" Her hair was disheveled as if she had seen a ghost, and she jumped out of bed in a tumble. She was so panicked that she almost didn't know what to do. The door was kicked open with a bang, and then a large group of people poured in, all dressed in red and green. After entering the door, as if they had made an appointment, everyone's eyes swept towards the big bed. Poison your lover? Sweat one. Then they all made a surprised hiss sound in unison, and when they turned to look at Qing Luo, their eyes all turned into disbelief, and some even covered their mouths and exclaimed, with expressions of disbelief on their faces. Qing Luo was a little confused. Who are these people? The leading woman was in her early 20s, with thin eyebrows and high-waisted temples. She was dressed in the kind of ladylike dress you can only see on TV. Her movements were full of charm, and there was a golden tin-foil flower on her forehead, which made her look even more beautiful, graceful, and wealthy. Seeing the messy and embarrassing situation in the room, her eyes were fixed on the panicked Qing Luo. A complex and proud look flashed from her eyes and disappeared without a trace. Qing Luo was slightly startled. His thoughts were still confused and unclear about the current situation. Then I saw a woman in red clothes and wide sleeves behind a lady with makeup stepped forward and scolded her. "Zhuang Yuji, you are so brave. On your wedding night, outside is full of guests and friends. How dare you have an affair with someone else and do such a scandal in the wedding room that insults the dignity of the palace?" Zhuang Yuji had an affair with someone else on her wedding night. What was this woman saying? Why couldn't she understand a word of it? Qing Luo couldn't help but frowned, looking a little confused. Before she could react, another woman in green had already rushed to the big bed. She stretched out her hand to feel the man's breath on the bed, and she was immediately shocked. "Princess, this person is already dead. Look at the black blood. It's 80% likely that he was poisoned." The poisoned woman with forehead makeup called the princess turned pale. She couldn't help but go forward to check. After seeing clearly, she couldn't help but shook her head and said, "If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, it would be hard to believe that the concubine that the prince just married would be so cruel." She looked at Qing Luo, her voice full of sighs. "Sister Yuji, why are you doing this?" He had a relationship with you after all. How could you bear to do such a cruel thing and poison him? The words were full of regret and regret. I poisoned him. Qing Luo was stunned and didn't react at all. What the hell is going on? Why do they say she poisoned that man? Also, what is the title of Princess Yufei, and what era are these people doing in filming? Poison your lover? Con 2. Qing Luo, wearing obscene clothes, stood alone in the middle of the room, subconsciously looking around. When those antique furnishings and these antique-dressed people came into view, a terrible word gradually came to her mind. Could it be that she really traveled? Seeing Qing Luo's silence, the woman in red clothes, all dressed up in flowers, thought she was guilty, so she couldn't help but glance at her contemptuously, stepped forward, and said to the princess, "Princess, the facts are all there. We have seen it with our own eyes. What else is there to say? This woman has brought shame to the royal family and the prince. She must not be spared lightly. She must be severely punished." When the princess heard this, a complicated look of unknown meaning flashed in her eyes. She sighed and said, "Someone will take Zhuang Yuji to a quiet room to wait for the prince to be punished." Yes. Immediately, 2 strong servants stepped out and walked towards Qing Luo quickly. At this moment, Qing Luo finally woke up from her chaotic thoughts and saw the 2 tall and middle-aged servant women coming towards them. She jumped away intuitively. "Hey, what are you going to do?" The servant woman said expressionlessly, "Concubine you. I'm offended." Then he lifted Qing Luo's arms from left to right, ignored her struggle, dragged her, and walked out of the house. Hey, let me go." Qing Luo struggled desperately and said loudly, "Let me go quickly. I don't know you at all, and I'm not your concubine. You've got the wrong person." What a pity for her. These 2 strong-made rivals were quickly dragged down. Looking at her struggling thin figure, the woman in red and the woman in green exchanged meaningful glances, and their expressions were obviously much more relaxed. An imperceptible sneer flashed across the princess's eyes. She straightened her expression and said sternly, "Today's matter is related to the face of the royal family. If anyone dares to leak it, the family law will take care of it." Yes. Everyone responded in unison. So, just like when they came, a large group of people left with a roar, leaving only 2 servants from the palace to deal with the male body on the red wedding bed. No one can argue cry 1. Qing Luo was inexplicably locked up in the most remote room in the palace. The room was empty, large, empty, dimly lit, and looked eerie. The 2 servants threw her in and then went out, leaving 2 little girls watching her from a short distance away, probably to prevent her from committing suicide. It seems that they really locked her up like a prisoner. Qing Luo stood alone in the center of the lobby, looking around, feeling like he had no way to ask for help. How could this happen? Why did she travel through time for no reason? Even if it's time travel, even if it's time to travel to a certain dynasty in history, aren't the most popular TV series recently time travel? In this way, she will at least understand some history, so she won't be so isolated and ignorant like now. She didn't know what situation she was in now. She could only get some clues from the words of the women just now. That is, her name in this world is Zhuang Yuji. Tonight is her wedding night to the prince. She should be a concubine of the prince, or a concubine, but who is the young man who died on her bed? Why are they lying together? According to what the princess said, she and that man had feelings for each other. Since they had feelings for each other, how could that man be poisoned to death by her? Could it be that all this was a trap set up by the princess? She wanted to get rid of herself, the prince's new love, so she deliberately poisoned the man to death and then put the blame on herself so that the prince could see how cruel the woman he liked was. God, don't be so bloody. She sighed and sat down cross-legged in distress. She was so worried that she didn't know what to do. It is estimated that this matter will be known to the princes soon. When the time comes, I don't know how they will punish me. If a knife kills her, that's fine. At least she can still be reincarnated, and maybe she'll go back in time because of this. But what if the prince is soft-hearted and doesn't want to continue his relationship with her? So he just locks himself in this ungrateful place for the rest of his life, alone until the end of his life. Her head hurt terribly, and she tried desperately to remember her past life, but she only remembered that she came from modern times. Her name is Lu Qingluo, and she is the editor of a fashion and emotional magazine. She remembers who her parents are, what they look like, and what they do for a living. I also remember what fun things there were in that world, such as computers, TVs, etc. But there was only one thing. She was completely blank about everything about herself. For example, her life memories, her emotional life, what she has experienced, whether she has been in love, etc. It is equivalent to saying that she has forgotten everything about herself, but she remembers everything about others clearly. She didn't know why this happened. She just felt a headache. While I was thinking wildly, suddenly the little girl's voice sounded respectfully. Mr. Li. Qing Luo turned her head when she heard the sound and saw a man in his 40s walking towards her expressionlessly. He came to her and said calmly, "Jade concubine, your majesty invites you." Qing Luo's heart skipped a beat. It came so soon. She looked at the white obscene clothes she was still wearing, raised her eyebrows, and said, "You are just going to let me see the prince like this?" Manager Li glanced at her, waved his hand, and a girl bowed forward and presented the clothes in her hand to Qing Luo. Qing Luo took it and saw that it was a purple silk robe. It felt good, cool, and smooth to the touch. She couldn't help but smile to herself. It seemed that the Jade concubine, was really as beloved as the servant said. She was locked up in a quiet room and given silk clothes to wear. She raised her eyebrows and shook the clothes in her hands at Manager Li. "Does that mean you want to watch me get dressed?" Manager Li blushed and stepped aside silently. Qing Luo smiled brightly and opened her outer robe. Fortunately, although the quality of the clothes was good, the design was very simple. She only needed to tie it with a belt around her waist. The only feeling after putting it on is that the sleeves are too big and the cuffs can even fit a child. Thinking of the princess and the women I saw in the wedding room just now, all dressed in this style with wide sleeves and fluttering sleeves, I thought maybe the clothes of this dynasty are all like this, a bit like Hanfu. She casually gathered her long, disheveled hair, cleared her throat, and said, "Okay, take me to see the prince." She didn't know why, but when she thought about meeting the so-called prince's husband, she couldn't help but become nervous. I don't know how he will deal with her. Will he believe what she said? She can't argue and cry 3. Manager Li said calmly, "Mother, please come with me." Although she sounded like a queen and her words were impeccable, her attitude and eyes were clearly filled with disgust. Qing Luo couldn't help but smile bitterly. Yes, who would respect such an empress, who has lost all her shame and face? Even the servants hate her so much, I'm afraid the prince won't give her good things to eat. She couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Silently following Mr. Li around and around the waterside pavilion in the 9-winding corridor until she was almost dizzy. He stopped in front of a courtyard that looked very exquisite and gorgeous and said expressionlessly, "We're here. The prince is inside." Qing Luo took a deep breath, walked around him, walked across the small bridge with white jade railings, and approached the small courtyard that seemed to be accessible only to ordinary people. Manager Li stayed outside, and there was not a single girl or boy guarding the courtyard. Everything was quiet. It seemed that all the servants had been dismissed by the prince. Qing Luo plucked up the courage to open the door, and an antique smell hit her face. Before she had time to look at the furnishings in the room, her eyes were attracted by a red figure behind the desk. The slender and tall man was writing quickly with his back to her. The white rice paper spread out on the desk already had several tall lines of black ink. He didn't seem to notice her coming in, but he was still swiping the ink calmly and gracefully against the waterfall of black hair. It looked like a beautiful and timeless picture. "I guess he is the prince," He is still wearing the red wedding dress. I don't know why he hasn't changed out of it yet. Although he looked festive, the awe-inspiring aura emanating from his whole body made people stop involuntarily and not dare to take another step closer. This man seems to be really hard to get close to. Qing Luo stood there a little scared, a little stunned for a moment, not knowing what to say. The atmosphere of silence spread in the room. Qing Luo stared at the figure in a daze, feeling a little dazed in his thoughts. "You're here," he suddenly spoke, breaking the silence and shocking Qing Luo. She composed herself and said, "Yes, Your Majesty, I'm here." She didn't know how to perform this ancient etiquette, nor what to call herself, so she could only answer like this. "Severe love, kill one." The gesture of writing quickly did not stop. Because of the distance, Qing Luo could not see clearly what he wrote on the rice paper. In addition, his back was turned to her, so she couldn't see clearly what the expression on his face was. Just from his calm tone, she couldn't tell what he was thinking. Silence again. After a long time, he squeezed out a sentence through his teeth. "Are you so in love with him?" Such a meaningless sentence made Qing Luo not know how to answer him. "Because I don't know my current situation." She didn't know what happened to Zhuang Yuji, so she could only remain silent. And her silence, in his opinion, was acquiescence. He smiled miserably, and when he exerted force on his hand, there was a hiss, and the brush in his hand actually cut through the rice paper. Qing Luo was shocked. Could this man have internal strength? "I can actually use a brush to split rice paper in half from the middle." Damn, he must be angry, right? Are we going to attack her next? She couldn't help but take a step back in fear. Although it is said that you can be reincarnated after death, but and still live in vain, it is better to die than to live. Now that you have come to this world, you should cherish this life given by God. You can't die here so unclearly. She subconsciously took a step back, trying to move back quietly while he couldn't see her. If he really wanted to attack her, the worst she could do was run away. If you can run one step at a time, you can't die in his hands. While she was thinking wildly, she heard him sigh slumped, and then his voice was faint, as if penetrating the distant sky, and came from afar. "In this case, I, the king, will help you." The voice sounded so desolate. Qing Luo lowered his head, not knowing what to say. I didn't understand what he meant, so I could only pinch my sleeves nervously, feeling anxious and uneasy in my heart. After a long time, there was no movement. She couldn't help but look up, only to find that the room was empty except for herself. "Hey, where's the prince? When did he leave? Why didn't even a sound come out? Could it be that he has Qing Gong and can kill two people without making a sound?" Just as he was wondering, Manager Li came closer quietly and said, "Jade concubine, please come back." Return, Qing Luo was startled. "Where's the prince?" Manager Li remained expressionless and did not answer her. He just made a please gesture. Qing Luo had no choice but to walk out. Along the way, Qing Luo was still confused. From the beginning to the end, she didn't see what this prince looked like, and she couldn't figure out what he was doing. Could it be that he called her over just to ask such an incomprehensible question? What was he thinking in his heart, and how to punish her? His unclear attitude made Qing Luo feel anxious. "Mr. Li." When Mr. Li sent her back to the quiet room and was about to leave, she quickly stopped him and said, "Excuse me, what will the prince do with me? Is it possible that he really plans to keep her here for the rest of his life?" Manager Li took a deep look at her and said mysteriously, "My lady, hasn't the prince already made a decision?" Qing Luo was shocked. "What do you mean?" Manager Li smiled lightly and said, "Your Majesty, think carefully about what the prince said." Then he ignored her and left. What the prince said? Qing Luo was stunned. Didn't that damn prince say just one thing? He said, "In this case, I will help you." Could it be that? Oh my God, could he want her to die? The princess said that she had feelings for the dead man, and the prince also said that he would fulfill them. Could it be that he really wanted her to die? Akakano? This man is really so vicious and heartless that he killed her without even investigating the matter clearly. Who do I rely on to care so little about human life? Qing Luo panicked. What should I do? No, I have to find a way to escape. She looked around in panic and saw that the two maids responsible for guarding her did not dare to relax at all and were still watching her eagerly. It seems that there is no way to escape. It's over. What should I do now? While he was wandering around in a panic, a middle-aged woman's voice suddenly sounded. Your Majesty has ordered this old woman to come and see your wife off for her last journey. Severe love, kill 3. What last leg? Qing Luo was startled when she saw a middle-aged woman walking towards her step by step carrying a tray with a complex and regretful expression on her face. She took a closer look and saw that there was a piece of white silk, a wine glass, and a pointed hairpin on the tray. It came so quickly. She had seen such a scene on TV countless times, but she never expected that one day it would happen to her. Qing Luo's legs suddenly softened, and he fell into the chair. Seeing her pale and beautiful face, the middle-aged lady sighed inwardly, knelt down, raised the tray high above her head, and said in a low voice, Your Majesty, please tell me, you can choose any of white silk, poisonous wine, and hairpins. Qing Luo smiled bitterly. She looked at the woman helplessly and said pitifully, Can I choose nothing? The woman was startled, then gently placed the tray on the table in front of her and sighed. Why bother? Qing Luo grabbed her arm like a life-saving straw. But I really don't want to die. A trace of surprise flashed in the woman's eyes, as if she was thinking, how could the jade concubine be so bold before and dare to poison her lover to death on their wedding night? And on that wedding bed with the prince, why are you so scared to death at this time? She wouldn't be so naive as to think that the prince would forgive her after she did something that embarrassed the royal family and embarrassed the prince. Thinking of this, a look of disgust flashed across her face. She quickly broke away from Qing Luo's arm, stood up quickly, and said, My lady, please get on your way as soon as possible. I will come back to check in half an hour. Then, regardless of Qing Luo's pleading eyes, he stood up and left resolutely. The maid died as a substitute and escaped one. Qing Luo was desperate. Could it be that she was really going to die here?